Hi Swati, nice to see you. Hello everyone. It's Dr. Manjiri Nadkarni, Ayurvedic MD, registered holistic nutritionist back today. And today we have a very good friend, an amazing Ayurvedic doctor. She's an author, she's a certified diabetes educator, she's a dietitian, she's a massage therapist. She has all those titles with her name. So we have the very gorgeous with the Gauri Junnakar. So it's awesome for you to be here. Thank you so much. If you can also join me on Instagram, that would be fantastic. And you can see Swati is here. So you have a long list of accomplishments.
Thank you, Manjari. You're very kind.
Yeah. If you can log on to Instagram as well. Okay.
I have logged in, but I don't know if I need
But
to.
you just have to go on to the live that I have done
Okay,
in my
okay.
stories and just ask to be in the video. So we're trying to do the same thing we tried the last time. So you just ask me to be in the video or
Yeah, send in the request.
okay. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so go live. Yes, so we are here and we are also on in our Facebook group. We're also live on YouTube, so it's a lot of fun. Okay. Oh, it's not working. I don't know how good it will be because there's a lot of echo.
Yeah, that's true.
So even with like having a really low volume, I think I can still hear the echo.
Yeah. What do you want me to do?
If you can just lower the volume, we'll test it out. If not, then we'll just stick to the Facebook. So anybody who has a problem here with the echo, you can also go on to either Facebook, Ayurveda for Health and Happiness group, or also on YouTube. So you can just find my channel, Dr. Manjiri Nadkarni, and you can also see us live there. I think we'll just go off Instagram. It's just
Okay,
like a lot.
okay. Let me
Okay,
just.
I'm just gonna delete that video and we're done. Yeah, perfect. So Gauri, it's amazing to have you. You have a long list of accomplishments, and I'm super excited to have you here with us. I'm not gonna waste a lot of time. I'm sure a lot of people already know you. That they are. You have been with us in the summits as well. So we will just get straight to the point. So she's gonna talk today about blood sugars and how blood sugars can impact your body, right? So, how exactly, like a lot of the times when we talk about diabetes or we talk about, people having imbalanced blood sugars, either blood sugar dropping too low or too high, how can food impact it? Because people don't necessarily think about food, they think about all the pop and the colas that they've been drinking, or
Correct.
they think about different things, but they don't talk about food. So how does one know that, or what impact does food have on blood sugar?
Okay. So, Manjari, when you think about diabetes and food impacts blood sugars the most. Okay.
Yeah,
So, there's a lot of misconceptions and lot of, especially myths about, especially carbohydrates.
yeah,
People think that people that with diabetes people need to cut out all carbohydrates and think a lot of myths. The most important thing we have to realize that carbohydrates provide us the major source of energy, which is glucose. And in fact, glucose is an important source of energy for our brain cells, our red blood cells, and our nerve cells. In
okay,
fact, our brain cells function a lot on the blood glucose. So, a lot of time when I say, for example, a lot of time that people skip their meals, if the time between the meals is too much, we develop a feeling called what it says hungry and angry at the same time, right?
yeah,
A lot
yeah.
of times there's more to do because, blood sugar is slowly dwindling.
Mhm.
And one of the things we have to also realize is that when we start reducing too much carbohydrate in our diet, our body is going to look for alternative fuels. One of the biggest fuels in our body is muscle.
Mhm.
So body is going to shift its gear and look for the alternative fuel, and a lot of time we may start losing muscle mass. So carbohydrates are an important source in our diet. We want to have important carbohydrates, but the idea is to have more complex with more fiber, something which is going to digest, which is going to be digested a little slowly. That means the glucose is going to be absorbed a little more slowly. So to
Mhm.
give you a perfect example of that, let's say we're looking at something like an apple and an apple juice. Okay, so a small apple, so something the size of a, let's say, gala apple, is like one serving of carb, which is 15 grams. And half a cup of apple juice also is considered 15 grams of carbohydrate. But
Mhm.
what the way our body is going to process it, the way our body is going to absorb that glucose makes all the difference. So with the juice, you're going to see an instant spike. But as opposed to that, we see an apple, because it has a lot more fiber in it, we are going to see that glucose rise very slowly in your blood, because the fiber is what is slowing that process. And that's important for us to understand, is a type of food, the quantity of food, when to have it also makes a difference. So we don't want to cut out carbohydrates. In fact, we want to focus on more complex carbohydrates. We want to focus on food that have more fiber in it. Okay.
Mhm.
The other misconception that a lot of people think is that you want to add too much protein in a diet
Mhm.
as well. Cut out carbohydrates and add too much protein. Again, that is also a misconception as well.
Mhm.
One of the reasons also for that, also remember that proteins contain an extra molecule in them, which is nitrogen. Our body cannot store nitrogen.
Mhm.
So the way our body processes it is it takes that nitrogen out, converts into ammonia, urea, uric acid. This conversion happens in our liver, and then slowly is taken to our urine, is thrown out via the urine. But again, keep in mind that it may put a lot of stress on the kidneys long term if we again eat too much protein at one time. That means the idea is to actually distribute that carbohydrates more evenly throughout the day. You want to also add carbohydrate and protein together to have a more even, what we call, rise of the blood sugars very slowly. And
Mhm.
that's why we always want to combine that carbohydrate and protein together. The third part I also want to focus on is a fat as well. Okay, even though we are not trying to add too much fat and things, but keep in mind, having like too much excess fat and things. One of the things that we find long term also is that since the body is going to take a longer time to digest fat, glucose may stay longer in the blood for a longer time. So all the three components of the food have effect on the blood sugar. That means our food has a direct impact, and that's why it's important for us to focus a lot on how we eat our food, when do we eat our food, the amount we eat, how we're distributing those carbohydrates, the proteins and things as well.
Mhm. See, and earlier on, I used to get really hangry, right? And so I remember the days when we would take, long trips, and my husband, like, as soon as we woke up, he was like, just get in the car, just get started, I'm not gonna stop for the next 4 hours. And I was dying, I was starving, right? And I didn't realize that that's a sign of blood sugar imbalance. That, suddenly your blood sugar drops and you get like really irritable and you want to eat it. So for our listeners, like when we talk about blood sugar, and we've discussed foods and how, carbs and proteins are going to, affect our body. But what are some signs that people can know that, okay, my blood sugar is not as balanced as I think it is? So are there some signs that people
Sure,
can?
sure, sure. So, if now that we talk in regards to for people with diabetes, if they have if they're encountering low blood sugars, typical signs for low blood sugar, a lot of times people feel that they're going to pass out. People feel that sudden mood changes. Right?
Mhm.
Suddenly they start becoming very angry. Sudden mood changes. Suddenly they feel that there's something different going on. Not sure. A lot of sweating, profuse sweating.
Mhm.
Okay, so that means, and this is something I always tell a lot of my clients, being a certified diabetes educator as well, is that if you're having any such sign and symptoms, or you're feeling there's something different going on, you're not sure, make sure you test your blood sugars. If blood sugars are below 70, they're considered low blood sugars,
Mhm.
and we want to bring those blood sugars back up. And a very simple rule to follow is called the rule of 15. What it is, you take 15 grams of fast acting carbohydrate. It can
Okay.
be half a cup of juice, it can be three glucose tablets, it can be three regular candies
Okay.
to bring those blood sugars back up. You wait 15 minutes and you retest your blood sugars. When your
Okay.
blood sugars come back to 70 or more, Then you want to follow it up with a small snack to maintain those blood sugars.
Okay.
What it is, if you raise up blood sugar, if you don't have anything to maintain them, they're going to come back down again.
Okay.
Okay, so as important it is not to have low blood sugars, it's
Mm-hmm.
important not to have very high blood sugars. A lot of times when people have blood sugars over 200 and things, a lot of times there's more of sluggishness, they feel very sleepy and things as well. But one of the things, keep in mind, continuous high blood sugars actually can be detrimental to some of our internal organs and things, especially can have an effect on the kidneys and things, kind of have effect on the eyes, nerves and things. So again, people with diabetes, this is one thing we have to make sure is we have to make sure our blood sugars are within the control.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's true, but not, when we talk about blood sugar, it's such a crazy topic, because everybody understands only diabetes, right? When you're diagnosed. And in Ayurveda, we talk about the prodromal symptoms or, certain signs that your body indicates, something's going wrong, something's off. So that's when you really need to take care of it. So what are some things a person can do in their daily diet or in their daily life to be able to manage
Yeah.
blood sugar better?
Sure. So one most important thing they have to do is make sure that they eat on time.
Okay.
Okay, don't skip meals, don't delay your meals. In Ayurveda, the most important thing we focus on is Agni, which is
Yeah.
our digestion, and we believe everything is to digestion. So one of the things we actually find in Ayurveda, even when it comes to diabetes and even blood sugars and things, we find that Agni, when the Agni is reduced, right,
Mhm.
our digestion is not proper. We are not absorbing, we're not absorbing those nutrients correctly. We are not assimilating those nutrients. That means, as a result, the things that are formed, our tissues that are formed, cannot be formed correctly. So again, it's very important to eat our foods on time. Very important to include some of those important cereals. For example, old rice is considered something that's considered important in Ayurveda. Things like yo or jow or bajra, right?
Mhm.
This is something that Ayurveda recommends you want to have. Millets you want to have. You want to have food that are easy to digest. So proteins and things. Think about more plant based. So for example, moong dal, or whole moong, easy to digest,
Mhm.
including a lot of spices in our foods. For example, turmeric,
Mhm.
okay, ginger, even hing, asafoetida. Even for example, ginger and things, something actually help to increase our agni, our digestion, is very important. So keeping our agni, our digestion is important. Making sure our meals are important. Making sure that we also include some sort of physical activity in our daily life as well to help balance out with our food intake and things as well.
Mhm.
Managing stress as well. So everything, all these together actually will help with our balancing our blood sugars on a daily
Mhm.
basis.
And for someone who has already been diagnosed with diabetes, if they're taking medications, if they're taking, metformin, I come across a lot of clients who are either on insulin and then they're like, oh, but I'm already taking the medication. So what's the point in changing my diet or lifestyle, right? So what are your thoughts about this?
Yes, absolutely. And that's very important to address that, because what of time people don't realize is that, if blood sugars are high, or for example, people with diabetes and things, right? Is people think is that, okay, so what if my blood sugars are high?
Yeah.
What they don't realize is the cumulative effect. Okay, long term high blood sugars can have a detrimental effect on our internal organ, especially kidneys. That's the very most important people have to realize, is
Mhm.
that once it starts affecting the kidneys, it's an irreversible change.
Okay.
There's no way we can go back.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's one of the things we have to keep in mind, is to prevent further damage to any of our internal organs, to especially with kidneys and things.
Okay.
Okay, and that's why it's important to control our blood sugars. Okay, in fact, this is what I tell a lot of my clients and patients, is that we want to look at your A1C. A1C is a blood sugar average for 3 months. So A1C 6.5 or lower, the lower our A1C, the lower the risk of complications with diabetes.
Okay.
Okay, and that's why it's important for us to actually address that they have to take care of their blood sugars right now, so we can prevent further damage.
Okay. And what about somebody, I have clients who are, so accustomed to the standard American diet, right? So whether it's waking up to, having a breakfast sandwich or, lunch could be like a raw salad. And they think, a lot of the times we think that that's giving us our nutrients. And there are so many misconceptions about it, and you see the marketing is misleading people all the time. Suddenly they'll try to put something in like a whole grain bun, but they'll put a lot of junk in it and pack it
Mm,
in a way that it's not healthy. So
mm.
how can somebody who's just starting out, if somebody has had a not so great diet but they're just starting out, without getting overwhelmed, is there something they can, like, baby step wise, is there something they can start to balance that blood sugar?
Sure. So what I tell a lot of my clients is that we don't want to do everything at one time.
Okay.
Start with just one meal. Change just one meal at a time.
Okay.
Okay? It may start. You may have to start with something. Let's say something as simple as breakfast. That's the easiest thing to change, right? So if, for example, instead of going out and buying something and going to the drive-through, why not think about just oatmeal?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oatmeal is going to give you a lot more fiber. It's going to be a lot more filling. It's going to be a lot more satisfying as well. And then, with that oatmeal, if you want, you can do, let's say, something like whole boiled egg, or you can add maybe some, few almonds or something. Just cut up some protein with that. That helps you satisfied until your lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
Something just making a simple change on your just one meal can make a lot of difference. Once you feel that you have made some change in your one meal and you are confident about going to the next meal making a change, then start looking at the second meal. It
Mm-hmm.
may be as simple as, if you're starting getting making your meals from home, prepping things ahead of time on the weekend, just making some few things ahead of time. Or it may be something as simple as, instead of buying the food from out, your lunch thing, make a sandwich, something simple, a sandwich. Just get some steamed and roasted vegetables on the side. Okay. The other misconcept a lot of people think is, adding a lot of smoothies and thing the first thing in the morning.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's something I always tell, you don't want to have the first meal to be cold.
Mm-hmm.
Our first meal of the day should be warm. And again, along with for the Ayurvedic principles, as well as when you think about a modern nutrition aspect as well, because our enzymes that we produce, our digestive enzymes, in fact, any enzymes are protein based. That means they are functional at an optimal temperature, not too hot and not too cold. So the first thing if we have in the morning is cold, how efficient are our enzymes going to be?
So
Same thing. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, smoothies is something that drives me crazy. Right? I'm like the anti-smoothie girl, and summer is probably the only time when people can actually handle some smoothies. But I see winter, everybody walking with their big, jugs full of smoothie. I see people making a big smoothie, a jar of smoothie, and drinking it throughout the day. So if you would tell us about, especially its impact on diabetes, right, or its impact on blood sugar, that would be fantastic, because it will educate people. And as I said, health industry has all these ways. Now you can see smoothies are packed and put in carton, and no problem. So smoothies are packed and put in cartons, and if you look at a cup having 30 grams of sugar, and people are like, oh, but it's healthy, it's a smoothie, right? And that just drives me insane. So if you can just clarify about,
Sure, sure.
insights on that.
Sure. So, one of the things that, and this is a lot of people is that through the Ayurvedic perspective, a lot is that in Ayurveda, we have a concept of, virudhana. That
Mhm.
means food with different qualities, opposite qualities. And we have to keep in mind is that different our foods will digest at different times based upon the quality, based upon the type, and what is included, right? So again, the most common ingredients, with smoothies, a lot of time they'll have the milk and fruits together. A lot of time they'll have yogurt and different fruits and things together, and this may have opposite qualities. Okay,
Mhm.
what I tell people, if you want to have a fruit, have it by separate by itself.
Mhm.
Don't combine it with yogurt. Don't combine it with any milk and things. Okay, because it may have an effect on our agni, basically our digestion, and that's how we may have an impact. We may find an impact overall, and long term, you may see an impact on our blood sugar and things overall. So, if you want to keep our digestion really well, you want to make sure our agni is strong. Make sure you're keeping those things separate. Okay, eat a fruit, but eat a fruit by itself. And now the best thing what Ayurveda says when it comes to yogurt, I think because yogurt or dahi is considered very heavy in Ayurveda. So instead of having more yogurt, convert it more something like buttermilk, which is easier to digest for the body.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's why I tell people, the first thing I tell them, if you're doing smoothies, instead of smoothies, have something warm in the morning. If you want to have smoothie, I would rather you have the whole fruit by itself, but don't combine it together.
So avoiding all the crazy combinations, and
Correct.
yogurt
Absolutely.
is another fantastic thing. We're talking diabetes, and this is something I see all the time, packaged yogurts,
Yes.
flavored, and first thing in the morning, which is also the kaffa time, right? So that is another one big thing when people think they're actually eating healthy, but they're creating all these heaviness in the body. So, what are your thoughts on yogurt, and what are some ways if somebody absolutely loves yogurt and doesn't want to give it up, and again, the way it's marketed with the protein content, right? So, what are your thoughts?
Correct, correct. The first thing I tell people is that we are not only focusing on easy to digest food, we are also focusing on the least processed
Mhm,
foods. So one thing I always make people realize is look at the contents, is the ingredients,
mhm,
as to look at what's been added. If you can't pronounce the second or third ingredient, really you want to think twice before having that food.
mhm,
Okay, because we a lot of time people don't realize the amount of preservatives and things that have been added to actually make that food. So the more processed the food is, the least, the lower it's going to be in its food value. So for somebody who really likes yogurt, the thing is that I tell them a lot of times the best time if you really want to have yogurt is only around, in the afternoon lunchtime, not in the morning and not in the evening. The reason is between 12 to 1 our digestion, our agni is the strongest. That's the time if you want, you maybe have maybe just maybe half a cup, not more than that. And again, that has to be more like plain, something that you have made it at home, something which is the least processed, which is added without any added ingredients.
mhm.
That's the best way. But again, if you can have buttermilk, that's a even better option.
And how does buttermilk impact your blood sugar as opposed to yogurt, or your body as opposed to yogurt?
So what I find, again, according to Ayurveda, your buttermilk is considered more easier to digest comparatively, right? So again, it actually helps with increasing our agni, first of all. Okay. The other thing, keep in mind, compared to yogurt, right? Yogurt is considered more heavier. Okay. Yogurt also has a property which is considered in Ayurveda. It's called strotorodhak,
Mhm,
right? That means it basically is going to block all the channels. Okay. So compared to that, if we think about when you're having buttermilk, there's a way to even have buttermilk, right? In Ayurveda, we've said we want to add what do you call sindhav. We want to add black pepper. That's how you want to have it.
mhm,
Again, make it easier to digest, make it easier to increase our agni and things, right? So again, if you want to have buttermilk, you also want to have it with, make it from the dahi or the yogurt you've made it freshly prepared.
mhm,
Okay, so again, think about even the probiotic effect as well. Even yogurt will have that, but again, because your takra or buttermilk is easy to digest. I feel that it's going to be have a more better effect on the blood sugars, all because it's going to be one easy to digest, increasing your agni.
mhm. Oh, that's fantastic, and these are things nobody discusses, So a lot of our clients come with granolas in the morning with yogurt and lots of fruits on it, and they think they're eating healthy, but especially when it comes to your blood sugar, and those things could actually be disastrous for your blood sugar. Now, because we're discussing Ayurveda, is there any connection of different doshas? When we talk about different body types, vatas, pittas, and kaphas, is there a connection between different doshas or dosh prakrutis with diabetes, or having excess blood sugar? So, do you see any connection?
So yes, so specifically, the biggest connection I see a lot is the Agni Mandya.
Okay.
And even in Ayurveda, if you look at all those are Ayurvedic treatises and things, right? One of the reasons for from in Ayurveda, diabetes is described as prameha,
Mhm.
right? And one of the symptoms is that it says excessive sugar through the urine, right? Or sweet tasting urine, basically. That's what it is. They're
Mhm.
saying. So prameha, there are different types of prameha that can be described in Ayurveda. There's kaphaja, there's vataja, there's pittaja, right? So in out of all the three, vataja is considered to be incurable. Kapha is considered to be more manageable, Okay,
Mhm.
even there I came across a certain actually couple of research studies that they had actually tried to correlate between prameha and diabetes and things. So what they found is that actually the Vataj prameha that is described in Ayurveda is it has some of the symptoms that are they've described very similar to type 1
Okay.
diabetes. With Kafaj Prameha, they found that some of the symptoms described in the Ayurvedic treatises are very similar to what they find in type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
In fact, excessive sweet intake, sleeping in the afternoon and things, weight gain, obesity, all these are considered actually some of the symptoms that are described in the Kafacha Prameha in the Ayurvedic treatises
Okay.
as well. So what they say is that when you think about it can be an impact on what do you say it can be excess kapha
Mhm.
imbalance as well. Okay, but the root cause what they're finding a lot is the Agni Mandya,
Okay.
is the digestion issues. So again, if you look at even with Ayurveda, some of the things that are described when it comes to diet as well is you want to have food that will increase our Agni.
Mhm.
Okay, that will reduce the kapha or the excess kapha in the body. Okay, Ayurveda has also talked about making sure that we don't sleep in the morning, we don't have excess access to different food that are sweet tasting and things or sweets overall as well. So in fact turmeric, in fact methi, bitter gourd, something which has more of the bitter tastes, right? Which are also hot in nature, which will increase our agni, decrease the cough overall, are going to be more beneficial overall.
Okay. So if you are diagnosed with diabetes or if you are having high blood sugar, maybe pre-diabetic or something, then you're saying that including bitter taste is one of the best things they can do. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. So bitter taste and something and the food that actually or spices that actually help increase that agni, which are hot in nature. So ginger, turmeric, black pepper, including those which will increase that agni, our digestion overall.
And that's something nobody discusses, when we talk about Agniman, like when we talk about diabetes, the whole approach is cut down carbs, cut down carbs, cut
Mhm.
down carbs. They don't look at the cellular metabolism, they don't look at the Agni, which is responsible for the cellular metabolism, right? Another question I have for you is, your thoughts on sweeteners, both artificial as well as natural. So we've seen like Splenda, sucralose, aspartame are, in different kind of pop or uh, even different kind of chewing gums and stuff, which are seen as a replacement of natural sugar. And then
Mhm.
there's also a whole side to xylitol and stevia and newer
Mhm.
supplements, monk fruit extract, different things coming in. So what's your experience with sweeteners, natural and
So
artificial?
sure. So let me talk about the artificial sweeteners first. So the artificial sweeteners, again, this is what how I explain to a lot of my clients, is these are after all chemicals. Keep
Mhm.
in mind. So if you're using them, be very mindful about using them. You don't want to have like 15, 20 packs added to a cup of coffee because you want to taste it really sweet.
Mhm.
Okay, keep in mind how it's going to digest in the body, how it's going to metabolize in the body is important.
Mhm.
So again, whatever you're going to put in the body, you are responsible for what we eat. We are responsible for what goes into our body. So artificial sweeteners especially, I would be very mindful about how much we have. Okay, it may not be more than 1 or 2 packs. That's what my suggestion is to a lot of my clients as well. But again, when it comes to even your natural sweetness and things, for example, the stevia, the monk fruit and things, it's the same thing. Being mindful. I have seen a lot of people sometimes develop actually a craving
Mhm.
when they add a lot more sweeteners in their diet as well. They feel that have a lot more cravings for sweets and things. So what my suggestion is, have smaller servings. Nobody says that you want to have like completely cut out different things. Just have very small servings. Okay,
Mhm.
it should still be okay. But we want to keep in mind you don't want to overdo anything.
Mhm.
Okay, things like a lot of times things which are like sugar free, for
Mhm.
example. Now keep in mind, sugar free is not carbohydrate free,
Mhm.
right? People think sugar free, it's better because they think it's carbohydrate free. It's not. If you look at the actual nutrition facts label behind, it'll tell you that what's the total carbs. Okay, it
Mhm.
may be reduced, but it's not carb free. Okay,
Mhm.
Things like sucralose and things like which have sugar alcohol in it. Okay?
Right.
Sometimes people are a little sensitive to it. Sometimes people may have diarrhea and things with relate to that when they have things which have a lot of the sugar alcohols like mannitol and things like that added. So I would be very mindful of again of all these artificial sweeteners to look at again how much we are having, and just again if we can have, if you really don't want to have that, have something regular but again a smaller quantity.
Mhm. And what about honey? Because every time you look at people replacing, and that's the most common replacement: maple syrup, agave
Mm.
nectar, honey, right? So, what are your thoughts on replacing sugar with another sweet foods?
Okay, so things like agave and things they're sweeter in taste but they still have some amount of carbohydrate, so we have to keep in mind they're not carbohydrate free.
Okay.
They will still impact our blood sugars, so that means smaller quantities always.
Okay.
Okay. Honey, now honey though it's in Ayurveda actually has a lot of importance. Okay, one thing according to Ayurveda, honey we don't want to heat the honey because it will lose its potency, it will lose its properties, right?
Mhm.
So honey actually in Ayurveda is considered something which has the scraping properties, right? Something which actually helps reducing the kapha overall.
Mhm.
So people who are kapha prakriti are actually recommended to have honey.
Okay.
Okay. So again, the same thing. But again, if you think about the modern nutrition aspect, it's going to be still amount going to have some amount of carbohydrate in it. Okay.
Okay.
So again, I would be mindful with the amount. I would have a smaller quantity if I want to have. The only thing is, I would not have honey in really hot tea or hot coffee.
Okay.
I would just be mindful of that. So again, the quantity matters. That's the most important thing.
Okay. We have a question from one of our listeners. So the question they're asking is, how do you convince a kid patient, so I mean children that you see in your practice who have a diabetic history in the family, which shows like pre-diabetic conditions, right? So what kind of foods should the children be avoiding? And this is so thank you for the question, and this is a really important question because we have these conversations with adults, but having a
Mm.
conversation with a child and asking to go off their pancakes and every all the gummies and something that they're so used to becomes challenging. So how do you, when you're working with clients, who
Mm.
are kids, how do you approach them? How do you make them understand? And what foods do you ask them to avoid? What foods should they have?
Okay, so the same things, how I explain this to the parents a lot of times is, it's out of sight, out of mind.
Hmm.
First, most important thing. Okay? Keep some of those things which I have, young food and things out of the house. First of all,
Hmm.
second thing is offer more variety. So, for example, when fruits and things, when a kid says, I'm feeling like eating something really sweet and things, why not cut up an apple and give the kids?
Hmm.
Cut up some of those fruits and have them ready
Hmm.
right there. So that way, they're not easily just grabbing to some of the things that we already have.
Hmm.
Second thing is again, make sure that everybody sits down together and have the meal together, right? And have the same foods for everybody. Don't cook separately for this person, cook separately for this person. Okay,
Hmm.
offer the same food. And again, say that one of the things I would say is that I know a lot of times kids are picky, but the more we try introducing those foods more consistently, the more they see it, the more better they will be at adapting and looking at those foods or even trying to taste these different foods. So I wouldn't avoid specifically different foods, but what I would do is junk foods and things not keep it at home. But again, keep some of those healthier options, for example, fruits and things right there for them to have. Okay. And again, explain to them, one of the things that we explain is that these foods help us have a more healthier body. If you want a healthier body, you want to have better energy throughout the day, these foods give us more energy throughout the day. If we have more whole foods, more whole fruits and things, and that's going to help us to have more energy, you're going to feel much more energized. So for example, you want to go outside and really let's say go on a scooty or go biking and things, you need energy, and for those energy the best way is to have some of these foods which will give you better energy.
No, that's a really good point, that educating the parents is important. A lot of the times we see parents who start eating more foods after they have kids, because they are so used to being picky and not eating certain way, and then suddenly they start developing this habit. So any other suggestions, any other specific things, like if there were three things a person could do, just go home and implement right now so that they can balance their blood sugar, what would those three things be?
Okay. The first thing is, again, eat your meals on time.
Okay.
Okay? Don't avoid or skip your meals. Okay. Second important thing is have some sort of physical activity implemented throughout the day. Maybe it's 15 minutes, it means 10 minutes, 15 minutes of walk every day. And the third important thing is stress management.
Mhm.
Okay, so the stress management aspect being, and that is what I see a lot in my practice, it's just not the food or the activity. Unless we take care of our stress right now, we're not going to see a lot more impact on our blood sugars, because it's the cortisol effect. When you're stressed out, the more cortisol will reduce. That's included in, we see the more cortisol there is, we see a long-term effect being more, chronic inflammation and things. And when you're stressed out, our body triggers our liver into releasing more glucose into blood, thinking we need more energy.
Mhm.
So the most important thing, I will tell you the three important things people can do right now. One, having our meals on time. Second, including your physical activity on a daily basis, maybe 10, 15 minutes. And stress management, maybe something as simple as reading to a book, listening to a music, or reading a book. Just 30 minutes of me time for yourself.
That's a really good point. We have another question. So, Usha ji is asking, what about good or jaggery? And
Good
this is something
question.
that we are all, like if you look at a lot of commercials and everybody's replacing the sugars with either good or, maple syrup. And so, how do you compare
Yes.
the two in terms of calories or even
Sure, sure.
glycemic index? Yeah.
Sure, sure. So good. Keep in mind that it may be, it is the least processed option compared to your regular sugar. It has more iron comparatively as well. Again, keep in mind it is still going to be a carbohydrate.
Okay.
That means I would still have a smaller quantity.
Okay.
Okay, it is still going to have impact on our blood sugars. So I would just have a smaller quantity.
Okay. So you can have good, but always control how much. Too much good is
Exactly.
not
There's
good for
nothing which
you.
says, this is, and I had read it somewhere that I'd come this across. I think one of the dietitians had put it on her post and thing. That's just something I want definitely want, and want to give credit to the dietitian. I don't remember the name, but she has said that eating just one salad a day, which is just one salad, doesn't make us thin, and
Mhm.
eating one, let's say, one maybe it's like a burger and things, but doesn't make us fat.
Mhm.
Okay, so what it means is a discipline for us to think about, again, being mindful of what we eat.
Yeah.
Okay, once in a while, yes, they are going to be what do you call, I'd say, cheat days.
Mhm.
Once in a while, it's completely okay to do that, but again, being mindful of that, not overdoing, being mindful of the quantity, just smaller servings.
We have another question about honey crystallization. So, is like, can you heat honey when it crystallizes, or should you not heat it to melt it?
um See, when it crystallizes, I think most of the time, I think we're going to see it more. I think in winter, coming in crystallization and things, we're going to see it. But if it's crystallized, I would first try to put it in regular water. I mean, room temperature water, and seeing it. I would not necessarily heat it up, because again, what my fear is about is the losing its potency, its
Yeah.
crystallization. Try in really just lukewarm water and see if that helps to reduce that crystallization and things.
Mhm.
That's what I would say. Or if you are able to use it the way it is, that's a better option.
Perfect. So thank you so much. Thank you for taking your time. Thanks for educating all our listeners about, managing the blood sugar, because this is an extremely important topic that we see all the time and nobody discusses it, right? So thanks so much. So for all the listeners, we have another video for next expert, which is next Saturday. We have Andrea Oliveira. We're going to talk about anti-aging, right? So we're going to talk about skincare, but mainly like anti-aging principles of Ayurveda is what we're going to discuss. So stay tuned for that. I'll be posting all the links shortly. So thank you all for watching this live. Thanks again, Vaidya Gauri. It was a pleasure to have you And I'm sure we'll have you back more. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Manjari, and thank you so much for all the audience who asked wonderful questions. And if you have any further questions, feel free to
Yeah,
reach out.
where can they find you?
So they can reach me out through our website, which is www.ayurnutrition.com. We also have a Facebook page, which is at Ayur Nutrition. They can also follow us as Instagram at Ayur Nutrition.
Okay, so I'm going to share your Facebook, your website right here. So for those who want to connect with Vaidya Gauri, you can definitely, she is also doing virtual consultations. So if you're looking for some support with diabetes, she's based in the US. So for sure, reach out to her. Usha ji, Uttam ji, they're saying thank you. We have another, I can't see because I've logged into StreamYard and I can't log into Facebook at the same time, but another Facebook user is really happy. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for tuning in live. And I will see you next week. Bye for now. Have a fantastic weekend.
Bye bye.